Madrick Longarrow and the gale skate of Fuwa. The winds carried whispers through the whisperleaf trees beyond the elven glade, and Madrick Longarrow stood still as bark, yew stave in hand, shaping it slow with a drawblade of obsidian edge. Every stroke shaved more than wood, it carved memory, honor, purpose. This was no ordinary bow. This was the full-stand yew arc like his grandfather's, taller than a man, strung with silver gut and meant for a truest shot. Scrabblers, his familiar, nosed at the discarded curls of yew shavings, his whiskers twitching with curiosity. The dire rat was too large for comfort, and too intelligent for a beast. He had followed Madrick from the lodge of Frey, after saving him from an errant scorpion. Madrick had offered food. Scrabblers had offered allegiance. Just one more notch, and you'll see it sing, Madrick murmured, testing the curve. The yew resisted like a proud steed. He respected it all the more for it. He was preparing for the gale skate. It had first appeared 2 moons past, streaking over the hills like a ribbon of shadow, its wings slicing the cloud line. A dragonling, yes, but unlike the dull-scaled cousins of the low marshes, this one flew with purpose, intelligence. It killed only enough to scatter herds, burn storehouses, or devour what could not flee. Its wings bore the patterns of blue fire. Some said it descended from the stormworms of the Sky Crown. Madrick knew it had chosen Fuwa's valley for a reason. He packed lightly, dried meat, flask, fletched arrows soaked in honey oil, a talon token carved with Baldur's runes, and scrabblers in his shoulder hood. The trail turned crooked once he entered the blue ivy wood. No paths here, only the maze of trees whose leaves shimmered like frozen waves. The gale skate had roosted here. Scorch marks blackened the canopy, and the scent of carrion lingered under the ivy vines. Scrabblers jumped down and skittered ahead, stopping suddenly, nose high. "We're not alone," Madrick whispered, sliding an arrow silently from his quiver. From behind a thicket of frostleaf came a tall figure in ash-white robes, a silver hammer strapped across his back, and a circlet of feathers on his brow. "I mean you no harm, truest shot," the man said. "I am Edric Thorn, humble servant of Baldur." Madrick did not lower the bow. What business does Baldur's flock have in a wildwood? The creature burns farms and temples alike. My order was sent to bless the lands, but I seek more than prayer. I seek to end the beast's hunt. Madrick eyed him. "And what do you offer?" The cleric raised a hand. Light flared like dawn between his fingers, pulsing with warmth. "I can blind it. Heal you, if it tears you. And I know its name." Madrick lowered the bow, a hair. Names are powerful. Edric stepped closer. "It is called Kelrethger, a gale skate bred by the Norns of Death Chapel, made in flesh but driven by storm spirits. It is not wild. It is loosed." "Then let's see it caged," Madrick said. They climbed the old watch hill before dusk. From there, the scorched field spread in a crescent. Fuwa lay beyond, its smokestack chimneys now cold. Kelwraith returned at night. The sky throbbed before the creature arrived, blue lightning without sound, a hum in the marrow. It dropped like a spear into the glade, wings unfurled, taller than oaks. Its breath steamed like winter's breath. Its eyes glowed sea storm green. Madrick drew. Scrabblers squealed and vanished into shadow. His job was sabotage, not glory. "Now," whispered Edric, eyes closed, voice rising in chant. As Kelwraith sniffed the air, hunting by memory, Edric clapped both hands together. A bolt of white light erupted from his palms, pure, bright, searing. The dragonling screamed, reeling back, wings folding in retreat. Madrick loosed his arrow. The yew bow sang. The shaft flew not with sound, but with weight of will, slicing the gale. It struck just below the creature's left wing joint. The skate shrieked, spiraling down toward the field. Madrick was already running. Another arrow. Another shot. He fired mid-run, knees dipping like a dancer's. This time, the arrow struck the skull crest, chipping bone. The beast writhed, tumbling down in a crash of feathers and scaled hide. Scrabblers appeared atop its eye ridge, biting furiously. Yyth shuddered. Then it stopped. The wood was silent. Later, Madrick stood beside the fallen gale skate, running his hand along its warm neck. He did not smile, but he did nod. "The valley will sleep again," Madrick said, tending to Scrabbler's scorched fur with soft incantations. "Fuwa will rebuild." Madrick looked to the sky. "This one was loosed," he said. "More may follow." Madrick nodded solemnly. "Then more must stand with bow and hammer." Madrick glanced to his yew bow, now marked by soot and lightning. "It's begun," he said, "and we'll be ready." As dawn rose over the valley, the blue ivy shimmered in peace, and the truest shot walked. Down the hill, Scrabblers perched like a shadow on his shoulder, ready to stalk again. Madrick Longarrow, and the moor beneath quarry. The continent of Yyth unfolded beneath Madrick Longarrow's boots like a cracked scroll, every region bearing the inkstain of war, wonder, or wilderness. He moved without hurry, but not without aim. Scrabblers clung to his saddle roll, whiskers twitching in sleep. The dire rat had grown leaner and keener since Fuwa. Madrick himself bore new marks, ash in his cloak's folds, a faint ridge of scar beneath his collarbone, a notch taken from his yew bough, still unfiled. The journey to quarry was not planned. He had followed rumors like a hunter tracks wounded prey. Farmers near the dust reaches spoke of tremors. Traders muttered of oxen swallowed whole. But it was the silence in quarry's stone-hearted folk that told him the truth. Something worse than fear had taken root. On the long road south, Madrick kept off the trail when he spotted the glint of bronze crests, Yyth men. A loose regiment of toll-gatherers and lawbreakers given license by the soon-to-be upstart Lord Yyth. He passed them quietly, watching from the briar shadows as they shook down merchants and played enforcer to whichever lordling paid them last. Madrick left men to their machinations. He answered to older codes and older threats. The quarry was not named for its trade, but for its shape. A great rift cleaved into the mesa like a bite from the earth itself. Locals worked the edge like ants, chiseling sandstone, hauling up black marble, and sometimes burying the dead when the stone cracked beneath them. Madrick arrived in time to see just that. The beast erupted with no warning. One moment, the crane team was lowering bundles of quartz. The next, stone shattered. A purple worm, longer than a galleon and 3 oxen wide at the mouth, breached from the quarry floor, devouring scaffold, rope, men and marble in a single convulsive lunge. Its hide shimmered with mineral sheen, like an amethyst fed on nightmares. Its scream was not a roar but a grinding of tectonic plates. And it smelled of wet copper, rot, and stone turned to dust. Madrick took position on a ridge. He whispered to Scrabblers, who darted down the broken cart trail toward the pit, slinking like a dark thought. The first arrow he loosed found only the worm's hide, and skipped off harmlessly. The second, a barbed bolt fletched with obsidian shard, found the flesh behind its inner mandibles. The beast howled, if such a noise could be called that, and turned its bulk upward. He had its attention now. From cliff to rock, Madrick moved. His yew bow hummed. Arrow after arrow lanced into the worm's exposed underfolds and softer neck ridge. Scrabblers, for his part, scrambled into the mining tunnel and overturned a barrel of flammables. Madrick's next shot ignited the trail of oil, and flame licked up the worm's flank. It thrashed and slammed its jaw to the earth, cracking its own scales on the stone lip. The worm heaved, shuddered, and fell still. But the earth did not quiet. From the charred rock of the quarry floor, mist began to swirl. It moved upward, twisting like a serpent, then condensed slowly into a shape. A man, cloaked in blood-red leather, eyes ink-dark, fingers tipped in bone rings. No footsteps touched the stone. "Impressive," he rasped, voice like a paper cut. "You broke my pet." Madrick had already knocked an arrow. "You raise worms like lapdogs?" The figure spread his arms wide. "I am Trazin Ra, blood shaman of Vein Prime. All beneath is mine, as will be all above. He turned to vapor before the arrow struck, the shaft sailing through smoke and biting stone. Trazyn-Ra laughed. The fight became one of persistence. Madrick moved constantly, trying to predict when the shaman would rematerialize. When Trazyn did, he launched cruel bolts, spikes of hardened blood, shrieking spheres of coagulated bile, curses that singed Madrick's skin without touching it. Scrabblers fetched a pouch from Madrick's belt, elven disenchanting dust, powder of starlight and ash, used in ancient rites to banish glamours and disrupt arcane wards. Rare. And dangerous. Wait, Madrick whispered to the rat. Trazyn reformed again, laughing, floating above a jagged boulder. Now. Madrick dipped an arrowhead into the dust pouch and fired, not at Trazyn but at the stone beneath him. The dust exploded in a spiral of silver-blue light. It caught the vapor mid-shift. The shaman solidified, screaming as the magic chained him briefly to form. That was all Madrick needed. A second arrow struck Trazyn's chest. A third found his eye. The fourth, driven by the full pull of the yew, pierced throat, spine, and anchored the shaman to the rock behind him. Trazyn's body collapsed into a coil of blood and ash, sizzling against the quarry stone. The pit was quiet. The quarrymen stared in silence. The worm was dead. The master undone. Madrick descended only long enough to recover his arrows and retrieve Scrabblers, who now carried a scar across his hind leg like a badge. He said little to the townsfolk. As he left quarry, someone offered him coin. Another, a prayer. He declined both. He was already looking eastward, toward a crooked hill on the edge of the ash march, where strange lights had been seen and children had gone missing. "Come on, Scrabblers," he said softly, stroking the rat's singed ear. The truest shot had more to hunt. And the wind of Yyth carried whispers still. Madrick Longarrow and the grove without a guard. The hills of Northmere sloped like a dozing serpent, green-backed and shallow. Breathed, scattered with wind-warped trees and moss-covered stones. Madrick Longarrow walked through them silent as shadow, bow wrapped in oilskin. Scrabblers asleep in his chest pouch, the rat's tail curled like a vine. He had no intention of stopping, until he came across the grove. It wasn't marked on his maps, nor did the wind seem to remember its name. But he found it, half sunken in fog, roots curling over rocks, and the unmistakable reek of poppy resin in the air. A grove like this should have sung with birds or hummed with bees. Instead, it reeked of something left untended. A shape shifted near the central tree, a wide-bellied ash bent with time and alchemy. From beneath it emerged a man, barefoot and blinking, beard matted with thistle. Down, a teacup of carved gourd in one hand, and a clay pipe in the other. "Guardian, are you?" Madrick asked. The druid blinked slowly. "Hedge druid," he mumbled. "But some folk call me Lelm, others call me nothing at all. Depends on the tone." He slurped the tea and grinned with violet-stained teeth. "Do you like mushroom tea or the poppy kind?" Madrick stared, unimpressed. "Your grove is dying." Lelm looked around lazily. She's just sulking. Can't be helped. Nothing lasts. Anyway, I've sent word. Told the trees to find a new beast or elemental. Not my worry anymore. You're abandoning it. Lelm puffed lazily on the pipe. Nothing in the oath about ulcers. Madrick descended that night into the hollows, a warren of deep soil caves and root-veined paths that coiled below the grove. Creatures had once dwelled here. He could see the signs in claw marks and ancient altars carved into shale. He left offerings, waited, called softly in sylvan tongue. Nothing answered. No dryad came. No badger spirit. No elemental stirred. The grove was alone. Scrabblers returned with only a beetle in his mouth, unimpressed. So Madrick set out eastward once more. He travelled to Greenwall, the brick and ivy city of trade where guild signs clinked in the wind like armor, and sermons echoed off copper-roofed temples. He wore his best tunic, only slightly burned, and tried not to glare at the crowds. Madrick disliked crowds. He distrusted walls. But he would do what needed doing. He began with the Stonebinders Guild, whose elementalists once carved sentries from living granite. They told him they were under contract to fortify the eastern holdfasts. No resources to spare for uncertified wilds. The Order of the Three Crows, once keepers of forest law, claimed their last druid had vanished during a harvest feast and hadn't been replaced. They offered Madrick a pamphlet about urban wildlife management instead. The monastery of St. Ebren said they could pray for the grove but not send help. Their initiates were needed for a vineyard near Dawnshire, recently cursed by hail. Only at the temple of Ariswin of the Vale, goddess of balance and borders, did Madrick find a true offer. A cleric in grey-green robes, face weather-worn but eyes alert, heard him out without interruption. The grove can be bound and protected, the cleric said. It will need a sigil anchor and a spirit guide summoned from the old oaths. I can do it. Madrick nodded. For a tithe of 100 gold, the cleric added, rubbing his thumb across a copper rune. Not for me. For the ritual, the ink, the offerings, and the exhaustion. Madrick reached into his pouch. 7 gold coins clinked. That was all. He opened a side pocket. A bent silver chit from quarry. Not worth coin here. He checked Scrabbler's harness. Nothing. He was 93 gold short. The cleric smiled patiently. Come back when you're not. That night, Madrick sat on a low wall outside the southern gate. Hands wrapped around his knees, Scrabblers sniffing at the heel of his boot. Guess selling your furs off the table, he muttered. Scrabblers squeaked indignantly and climbed up his shoulder, tail twitching. He thought of Lelm, the lazy druid. He thought of the grove, its cracked bark and choking roots, of how the wind no longer whispered there. He looked to the moon, high and full, and considered his options. There was always a bounty board. Or something. Less legal. Madrick stood slowly. He adjusted his bowstrap, dusted his sleeve, and looked toward the lantern. District, where the taverns burned late and the gamblers played rough. Let's go find the other 7, he said to Scrabblers. Then we'll figure out the 93. The truest shot walked into Greenwall's lights, not to kill, not to hunt, but to earn, because even legends sometimes had to haggle, and the land of Yyth, ever waiting, did not care how. The towers, and the oldest book. Greenwall was not a cruel city, just a complicated one, loud with tradesmen, escries, twitchy with pickpockets, and ruled more by habit than law. Madrick Long Arrow, who could read bird flight like a scroll and stalk breathlessly through frost-thick woods, had no talent for cobblestone politics. He moved like a shadow through open-air markets and colonnaded halls but found that every corner asked a question, toll or title, coin or kin? Scrabblers fared better. The dire rat scouted beneath tavern benches and beside city fountains, returning with bits of overheard gossip and half-eaten bread. After 3 days, Madrick had visited blacksmiths, cobblers, jewelers, gatekeepers, hawkers, of charms, hedge priests, animal tamers, and a woman who claimed to speak directly to Moss. Still no gold. Still no help. But when he took to asking the guards, sentries in brass gorgets and green capes, city watchmen, with polished halberds and sour moods, he heard the same name spoken again and again. Seek Sir John. He will always help. The name carried weight. Not reverence. Not fear. Reliability. So Madrick climbed the eastern road, through the carved stone arch that marked the principalities. Towers, a cluster of high-roofed halls and noble houses that rose like fingers from the hilltop. He found Sir John speaking with an injured stable boy, binding his hand with practice speed and speaking softly, like a father who never raised his voice. The knight turned when Madrick approached, and without introduction said, "You've the look of someone who's already done all the work, and still needs the right door." Madrick blinked. "I need help for a grove. A real one. In danger." "Then you need Yondell," Sir John said, standing and brushing his palms together. "Come." He listens to everyone. Even those with road dust and a rat for company. Yondell the kind, they called him. Yondell, the old. whispered others. The king's vizier, clad in the silver-stitched robes of Yyth Yellow, god of light and magic. His chambers smelled of oak-root parchment and old candle wax. Dozens of scrolls floated around him, rotating like leaves on a breeze. On the pedestal near his writing desk sat a spellbook bound in green dragonhide, its titleless spine cracked and curled with age. The elves had long whispered of it. It was said to be the oldest spellbook still used by any wizard, man or otherwise. Yondel looked up from a shimmering map and smiled as Madrick entered, Sir John gently closing the door behind him. "I've heard of you, Madrick Longarrow," the vizier said, his voice smooth and warm. "Truest shot. Slayer of the Gale Skate. Slayer of the Worm at Quarry." "I need no title," Madrick said. "Just aid for a dying grove. Its druid has failed his oaths. I tried to find another. No one will go." Yondel nodded slowly. "Yes. Too many young casters seek glory or court placement. Too few tend roots and spirits." He turned to one of the scrolls floating beside him and plucked it from the air, reading it with a tilt of his head. "I will dispatch one of my own. Her name is Morella, newly anointed by Yanthos's grove, and well-trained in old rites. She will anchor the land and rekindle the pact spirits. Your grove will not die." Madrick stiffened. "You ask no coin?" Yondel smiled again. "No. Only that you tell no one how easy it was to help you. It may ruin my reputation." A long moment passed. Then Madrick bowed, deep and proper. "You have my thanks. And the groves?" Yondel gestured toward a low silver door in the side wall. "Wait there. Morella will be ready within the hour. She'll bring what's needed." As Madrick turned to go, Yondel called out, "And Longarrow? Not all cities are cruel, just slow to listen." Madrick nodded. Scrabblers squeaked in agreement. Outside the principality's towers, the wind shifted slightly. Madrick took a long breath. The work was not finished, but the land would be tended. Balance, once lost, had a way of growing back. He would see Morella to the grove. He would see the trees remember their name. And then? He would vanish down another road, because the land of Yyth, old and wild and wounded, still whispered its need to the few who heard. And Madrick Longarrow, truest shot of the elves, still listened. Madrick Longarrow, and the fall of Tyrrell. It was not the wind, nor weather, nor hunger that dogged Madrick across the long roads of Yyth this season. No. It was the uncanny consistency of Rythall men, each checkpoint. Each pass, each wide span of stone bridge, uniformed toll-takers, and quiet watchers who claimed no authority but wore the same strange half-cape and bore the ironwood brand of the lawless. Yet never once did he spy them near Frostshire. Something about that mountain repelled them. The craftspeople of the Vale, plain-spoken and hard-skinned from cold work and colder winds, all gave the same direction when he asked about travelers or threats. If you seek answers, go up. Go atop the lone mountain and find the Seven Brothers clan. They watch more than they speak. So he did. The climb was not perilous by the measure of elven kind, but neither was it idle. Snow laced the switchbacks, and the air thinned to a blade. Near the summit, an encampment stirred, a sprawl of hide tents ringed by weather-worn statues and bones lashed into wind chimes. Here lived the Seven Brothers clan, guardians of the old pass and descendants of those who bowed only to the winter court. There, by firelight and under banners of faded blue, he met Tyrrell, daughter of Tyrwill, the famed champion of Tyr. Tyrrell stood tall even by northern standards, broad-shouldered and bright-eyed. With a jawline that did not smile easily and a voice that did not seek favor. She listened to Madrick's words without comment, looked at his bow, then at Scrabblers nestled in his pack. "I will go," she said simply. For 5 days, they traveled the ravines and pine chokes below the mountain, seeking signs of shadowed movement, of twisted things that slithered by moonlight. The creatures did not make themselves known until the 6th night, when frost coated their tent and a deathly stillness sucked the sound from the forest. Then they came. From the hollows between fir trees, they descended, horrors of slick, limb and hungering face, night creatures born of rot and grave wind. Madrick loosed arrows with artful calm, each shaft striking true, but there were too many. Tirbel, axe in both hands, roared like the old gods and held fast. Until the last moment, her breath a storm, until silence took her. Madrick survived, only barely. He took her body and carried it, not down the slope, but up, higher, to the mouth of the Seven Brothers' Hall. The clan did not ask why. They only received her. And when Madrick turned to leave, not one word was spoken, but many hands thumped chests in grim salute. Even silence has meaning in the north. Madrick Longarrow left with winter at his back. And the Yyth men were not far ahead. The marked map, and the man in leather. There came a season where Madrick did not roam but watched. He spent his days under leaf shade, or high on cliff ridges, or crouched in half-dug foxholes beneath ferns. What began as a reconnaissance became an obsession. Every fire ringed, by banners, every change of uniform, every notch of rank and insignia. Yyth's quiet spread across Yyth was not mere conquest. It was colonization by clockwork. He tracked what others overlooked. 2 sergeants for every 20 men, 1 captain per 40. Each company well-fed, well-groomed, and rotated with a schedule cleaner than temple bells. 100 soldiers to a major, 120 to a colonel. No breaks in rank. No signs of desertion, no visible infighting. Even the whores had their tents pitched and assigned, and none seemed taken against their will. Ale carts arrived every 10 days, and pay satchels came in armed convoys, reliable as spring thaw. Who funded this? What kept it so strong? Madrick's scrolls bore the weight of ink and weeks of travel. Dozens of camps, hundreds of footprints, countless routines catalogued in looping, precise hand. But eventually, he noticed something else. He was not alone. It was subtle at first, a snapped twig where no tree should bend. The faint echo of humming, never near, never close, but familiar. A sense of mirrored movement. Madrick took to circling back, doubling steps, mimicking animal patterns, masking his tracks. Still, the feeling persisted. It was not dread, nor danger. It was something worse. Professional courtesy. The trap he laid was delicate. A blind slope near an overlook, baited with his own cloak. He left a silver pin, one that would glint in morning light, just visible to a clever eye. Then he hid in the roots of a toppled elder tree, and waited. For 6 hours, nothing but birdsong. Then came the creak of leather. Madrick stood before the man fully drawn, bowstring taut, arrow aimed at a heart that didn't flinch. Friend or foe? Madrick asked. The man only smiled. You're old-fashioned. He looked like a ranger from the storybooks, hood back, long coat of dark brown leathers, the stitching fine and foreign, flame-red hair tied behind his neck with a copper ring. No weapons drawn, but a blade's hilt peeked over each shoulder, and something like a crossbow hugged his thigh. His face was ageless in that uncanny way. Human, but not merely so. I know that name, Madrick said, lowering his bow an inch. Pittel Arrowleaf. One of the enduring. So it's true, the red-haired man said, stepping close. You still speak the old tongue. You still understand it? Madrick asked in Elven. Better than most elves these days, Pittel replied with a grin. Then, leaned against a tree like they were sharing stories over pipe smoke. I've watched your work. Very methodical. Your ratios are correct. Your maps, nearly flawless. Nearly? You forgot the signal runners. 1 per company, children mostly. And the birds. Madrick cursed softly. You think Yyth is a horde, Pittel said. But it's something far more dangerous. It's an idea made sustainable, with coin, bread, and most importantly, laws. I don't trust men who bring laws to those who didn't ask for them. You shouldn't, Pittel said, straightening now. His tone cooled. But you're also outnumbered, and outplanned, and badly in need of friends. You volunteering? No. Pittel's eyes glinted. I'm offering advice. The next colonel comes from the east. His name is Varix. He doesn't drink, doesn't whore, doesn't joke. He's got a bishop with him. One of the veiled ones. They're not expanding, they're preparing. For what? Ask me again when I know, Pital said. And, Madrick? Yes? Don't sleep in the same grove twice. And if you must sleep near water, never on the bank. The Yyth men learned to fish for more than trout. With that, he vanished. Not like magic. Just like a man who'd practiced vanishing for 300 years. Madrick stood alone beneath the ash trees, maps in his satchel, and questions in his gut. For the first time since Tyrbel's death, he felt like he was already too late. Madrick Longarrow and the Chains of Harbour Town. The moon had been high when Madrick loosed his first arrow. 2 sentries fell, then 3, and before the 4th could cry out, Scrabblers was at his ankle with teeth bared. It had all seemed so fluid, so promising. For a moment, Madrick believed he might gut the whole camp, leave the Yyth scum scattered like meat for buzzards. But 20 became 30, and the shadowy stillness was broken by torchlight and boots. He fought like a scorpion, but they closed in all the same. He had not counted on horns to blow so soon, nor for his bowstring to snap after his 9th shot. A cudgel struck his temple. When he woke, his arms were hoisted above him, his ankles bound, body hanging like game from a trapper's pole. Scrabblers came and went, first sniffing around the perimeter, then daring in closer. Once he made it under the tent, near enough to chew at a knot. But a cook spotted the dire rat and flung a burning brand, singeing fur, and sending Scrabblers squealing into the night. Madrick could do nothing but hang, watching torchlight flicker and listening to men laugh around their ale. They beat him, but not too much. A captain had already declared him too valuable to gut. By morning, Major Wrightson himself came. The half-ogre was all brawn and bulk, with tusks that curled like boars, and a stripe of dark hair braided with bones. He sneered as he examined Madrick, nudging the elf's ribs with his gauntlet. Didn't think I'd catch me a long arrow. Or is it short-hung? He roared with laughter. Elves fetch well, specially archers. King himself'll pay for you. If not, I know 3 pirates who will. Madrick spat blood on the major's boots. Wrightson only grinned. Good. Spirited sells better. That night, bound in chains and lashed to a mule cart, Madrick watched the woods he knew vanish behind him. He could hear Scrabblers in the dark still trailing, always trailing, but never close enough to free him. By the time they reached Harbour Town, Madrick was weak with fever and filth. The salt air did nothing to soothe him. Harbour Town was no place for a forest-born elf. Its streets reeked of fish, iron, and desperation. The slave pens were filled with broken folk, dwarves, half-bloods, even the odd magic kin, all with eyes dimmed from time and trade. He was not paraded, he was processed, catalogued like grain or spice, marked by a brand he couldn't see but could feel. His bow was gone, his yew-stave project surely discarded or torched. They stripped him of everything but the memory of wind, of Scrabblers, and of Tyrbel's eyes as the night took her. In the pens, Madrick counted hours by the shadows of chains on the wall. He heard names he recognized spoken in dark corners, Yyth captains, old foes. He listened. He remembered. He survived. Because one day, he would escape. And when he did, he'd kill every man with a Yyth banner. From the lowest cook to the highest colonel. Especially Major Wrightson. And then, he would come for the buyers.